for beer, and right across the street, we can get something to eat.
Yeah.
So, again, my entry to the food was really the way a Mexican would eat and not the way a tourist would eat in a restaurant. And then when we were actually camping, I mean, you look in the water and it's like, oh, it's a lobster. Okay.
Yeah, let's cook that.
There's some driftwood. There's a lobster. Let's do that. I learned to, just eat clams straight up. Mussels, when they were small enough, we would eat them. The foraging aspect was really interesting. The desert plants, which I actually learned more about in mainland Mexico than in Baja because there's so little. Baja's full of poisonous, spiny things, in case you didn't know. Yeah.
Yes.
Central Mexico, you can eat that flower, but not in Mexico. I think it brought more of an attitude than specific experiences.
Yeah.
And not because I didn't grow up in San Diego. I wasn't crossing the border when I was 18 years old to get drunk down there.
Yeah.
I had to go down and get drunk when I was 21 and finally got here. And it really changes your perspective. Also, being in the markets and actually seeing what people eat.
Mm-hmm.
What's this meat? What do I do? I was a chef at this point, so I would be looking at things like that. And when I did start looking for recipes and start hunting for things to cook, I would go to my cooks and I go, how do you make this? Call your mother.
Yeah.
I want to know how to make this salsa. Or I get in cactus pears and they go, oh, my grandmother used to do this and this and this and this. And just in conversation, things would catch me. I have worked with 3 people that were born and raised in Baja California and Tijuana. 2 in Tijuana and 1 in Ensenada, and they have a really interesting perspective on it from the seafood point of view.
Right.
Because you never think of Tijuana as a seafood destination. I don't know why not.
It's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah. Great
seafood restaurants in Tijuana. Ensenada, you kind of expect it, but they were like the tuna masters down there.
Uh-huh.
And the hot smokers, like Las Lahumadoras, and I'm going in circles here, but right behind the old fish market in Tijuana on the way to the Costco is Las Lahumadoras, which is that strip of taquerias there. Have you ever been there?
I have not, actually.
They're awesome. Those are the best taco places, and they're easy to get to, but they're built where all the old smokehouses used to be. So if you go back to the theory that people eat what they have, when you catch a marlin that's 300 pounds, that's a lot to eat without refrigeration. So they started this whole hot smoking thing, which is very distinctive to Baja California. The olives, the presence of the Mediterranean aspect of the diet, which keys right into the wine.
Of course.
And
the olives are unbelievable, so is the olive oil.
Yep, and the olives were planted to make olive oil to pack the tuna that came in.
Now that I didn't know.
Yeah, that's why they're there. So that wonderful cannery just north of Ensenada.
Yeah, that we can all smell.
That we can all smell. There's good beer nearby, though, so it's worth the smell.
Well, I'm glad that you shared some of that because that's what I was trying to extract out of you because I think that's what attracts me so much about Baja. You talk about you eat what's around. And I remember a number of camping trips, literally finding some wood, fishing, meeting a local that says, oh, I got, some salsa or whatever they've got. And then next thing you know, you're having lunch with 10 local guys because you caught a couple fish and everybody's having a great time. And I think that's really the essence of Baja is putting something together with what you have. And I just think it's very special. And I've seen a lot of the recipes in your books, and I know they reflect some of that spirit, if not all of it.
It's hard to bring that feeling into a restaurant. And we really try. But a restaurant is, by definition, always going to be more of like a canned experience.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we never went the route of putting up big pictures and saying, yeah, here you are, you're in Baja California, when you're clearly not in Baja California.
No.
But if you were there, this is the story behind this dish, because everything on the menu has a story behind it. And the good servers know them, and they can spin a tale. But to me, it really feels true to the place, and that's almost more important than pretending to deliver experience. Because this is a place that could be in Baja.
Yeah, absolutely.
They probably do pretty well in Mexico City, too.
You probably would, and a lot of other places. Well, let's talk about your partnership that you have right now. So obviously you've got a background built in culinary. You've spent some time in Baja now. You fell in love with it. You're in California. and you run across your partners. How did you find them, or how did they find you, and how did all that develop? Because we get to benefit from the end result, and that's a wonderful restaurant.
Yes. Well, this is a good story on their part, too. My partners are Rich Howland and Matt Baumeier, and Matt and Rich have known each other since Arizona. Rich founded Raw Sushi, R.A. Sushi. So
I know it very well.
He was one of the founding partners of that, and built it up, sold it to Benihana. One of his proteges was Matt, and when you meet Matt, Matt's like this super high energy, very, very dedicated guy, and Rich was just like, you're my guy. So they're, became friends, and they went surfing one day. They went from, they were living, one was in San Diego, one was in San Clemente. They went surfing. They went down to K38. Excuse me. So those of you who surf know where K38 is, and they went in the water and didn't die, and got out and had tacos right there at the little taqueria, and they looked at each other and they said, why don't we do a Mexican restaurant? And so their idea was to do a little taco stand, and if you've been in Seoul, you know that Seoul is by no means a little taco stand, but they wanted to communicate what I want to communicate, and that's why we kind of jibed, is that you want to communicate a feeling of ease and comfort and deliciousness and simplicity, which is really what Baja is all about.
Absolutely.
And that's a hard thing to do in a restaurant, too. So they came back and they started looking at Mexican cookbooks, and they found my Baja book.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, that was my first book. I think I was working on the Rancho La Puerta book. I was the chef at the Del Mar racetrack, running 8 kitchens with 200 cooks, because that's what happens when you have 2 kids going to college. You take a big job. So my phone rings, and it's Matt, and he introduces himself, and he had no idea where I was. I could have been in Kansas for all he knew. So it turns out we live about 3 blocks away from each other in San Diego.
That's interesting.
We started
what are the
talking.
Chances?
What are the odds?
Yeah.
Actually lives right next door to a building that my husband's family owns. So we started talking. He's like Mr. Charm. He says, we'd love to talk to you. We love your book. All you have to do to a chef or an author is say, oh, I love your book.
Of course.
And, they'll do anything. So I met them, and we really hit it off. They got it. They were restaurant people, and they got it. And, you know enough about restaurants and about wine that when somebody kind of catches the concept, it's worth talking to. It's not like, we want your recipes because we're going to roll out a fast food place.
Right.
No, it wasn't like that. They wanted the personality. They wanted the history. They wanted all things that matter to me. So that was almost 11 years ago, and we opened in Newport in July 2009. So
okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yep.
We were just slinging tequila back then.
Uh-huh.
Let me talk about your book for a second, because if that's how they found you, when did you decide to write a book, and how did that come about? Because that's no small undertaking.
No. Well, I have 8 now. So I guess if you can do one, you can just keep doing them.
Keep rolling them out.
That came about. I was the executive chef for Hilton Torrey Pines, and I had been a journalist before, and then I'd been a chef for a long time, and I just thought, I want to start writing again. So I called up the Union Tribune, food editor, and introduced myself in a high, squeaky, scared voice and said, I want to write a story for you. She said, yeah, write whatever you want.
Easy.
So I started doing articles, found a writing coach, Tony Allegra, who is from San Diego originally and is now in the Bay Area. And she said, why don't you write a book? And I went, I can't write a book. A book's too big. A book is too big a deal. And she says, you can write a book. And she said, if you were going to write a book, what would you write it about? And I said, without even thinking about it, I said, I write it about food and wine of Baja California.
Right.
Because it's such a cool place, so undiscovered, so special. And she went, fine, what would you call it? And I said, Baja Cooking on the Edge. She says, there, you have a book. Now just write it.
Fill in the pages in between.
Yeah, just fill in the 280-odd pages. And it was originally going to be a book about Southern California and Baja, and all the editors wanted was Mexico. That's all they wanted to talk about was Mexico. I'm like, fine. So that took me about 2.5 years to research. It was pretty much a 4-year project from start to finish to get it done, published by Rodale, and then I bought the rights and reprinted it. And it was great. It was great.
Well, because we're on a podcast, people can't see it, and I will just remind everybody what a beautiful book it is, not only for the recipes and the stories, because you've done a lot of research. There's a lot of history in here.
It's all the recipes all come with a story. Everything comes from somewhere, which to me with food really matters. It's what was Eric saying earlier? Your partner, he was saying it's the mystery. But I want to know that my food comes from somewhere.
Yeah,
and that it, somebody made it and somebody tweaked it, and this thing, not even just ingredients. I want the heart to be in it, and that matters a lot. And that got everything I had, and then I just kept writing.
Well, I think for giving it everything you have, you nailed it, because I've been cooking casually most of my life, and when I go to pick up a cookbook that I want to work with, everything you have in your book is something that I would work with, right? You've got some great photos that kind of gives you that stimulation to get going, and then you read a little story like, well, why can't I? Of course I got to make this one, right? So it's just a beautiful book. If somebody wanted to get these at the restaurant?
They can get them at Sol or Solita.
Okay.
Any one of the restaurants carry them. It's on Amazon for a little while longer. I'm going to take it off Amazon eventually.
Great. And we also have them on the Baja United Wines website
That's
as
right.
well. We've sold a few there. So it's just a beautiful book. And then you progress into doing others. You said 8. You want to rattle off a couple of those other titles and what they're about? Or
Well, I'm going to brag a little bit about this one, because this book was one of Food and Wine's best cookbooks the year it came out. They had, I think, half a dozen, and mine was one of them, which was very nice. So I've done a couple things for Food and Wine since. And then I was approached by the woman who founded Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Deborah Zeke.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know Rancho La Puerta, it's a fitness resort in the mountains in Tecate, right on the border on Mount Kumeyaay, which is or Mount Kuchima. Excuse me, Mount Kuchima. I always get them mixed up. Right on the sacred mountain of the Kumeyaay people. And it's 75 years old, and you just go and you hike, and they have a 6.5-acre organic garden, and it's an amazing place. It's one of those really special, like Stonehenge type places that you go into and you go, oh yeah, I like this. So she approached me to write a new cookbook with them called Cooking with the Seasons. That was nominated for a James Beard Award. Didn't win, but I'll take it.
Hey, I'll take a nomination any day of the week.
Yep. I've done a couple of taco books. I did a book called Salsas and Moles. I did the Mexican Slow Cooker, which is occasionally a bestseller on Amazon still, which is nice. And I just finished the Mexican Instant Pot.
Oh, I got to get that.
Oh, you got to get an Instant Pot.
I'm addicted to I have an Instant Pot.
Oh,
I need your book.
October. End of October it comes out.
Oh, yeah. I'm on that thing at least 2 or 3 days a week.
Well, it's funny. I pitched a book for the Mexican pressure cooker like 5 years ago, and I wanted to call it Speedy Gonzales. And nobody got it.
No.
And then the Instant Pot arrives, and it's like, we want you to do this book on the Instant Pot.
Of course you do now.
Yeah.
It's amazing what that's done for kitchens around the country. I mean, who would have thought, right? It's a pressure cooker, but I've had a lot of people ask me about using mine because I post up a lot of pictures. There's a couple chefs I follow, but the recipes are very easy. As they say, you can do it all in one pot, from sauteing and all that stuff. And then when the guests come, it's clean. Everything's clean, and here's your meal.
Yeah. I have 2 on my counter. And I honestly, I use them all the time. And when I was doing the slow cooker book, I had 6 slow cookers.
Oh,
right?
wow.
This is how long it takes to do a recipe.
Yeah.
Now, and I used it last night. I threw the potatoes in and did the potatoes in the Instant Pot.
Well, without giving away the book, is there any 1 or 2 recipes we can look forward to trying in that book?
Oh, gosh. There's so many good ones. Well, the chili verde is amazing. I love pork chili verde. And in any of the estafados, like the stews, are great. And you can make the salsa like right in the insert. Pick it up, throw the meat in, turn it on, go whistle in a corner or do whatever for 30 minutes, and it's dinner.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the beans, beans in less than an hour. So
love it.
Yeah, it's got my charo beans from Solita. If you love my charo beans from Solita, that recipe's in there. So
well, there's not too many things we don't like that you put out, so thank you for that. I look forward to that book coming out. So we kind of dropped off just before we got into the nature of the restaurant and your partners there. Can you tell us about the restaurant? By the way, this show airs in 10 countries now, so we want to attract those people down in Australia to come this way. So please share the story.
Yeah, we do. Well, the restaurant, we have 6 now. We have 4 Souls,
Mm-hmm.
and we have 2 Solitas. And the Souls are, the first one is in Newport Beach, which is kind of like, as we call it, it's the heart of Seoul. We're right on Balboa Marina. It's kind of a funky old building. It used to be an old steakhouse. It was
Yeah.
Charlie Brown's or something.
Yes, it was. I
Yeah.
remember that.
We were finding old tickets stuck in the walls when we took the walls down.